Viewer discretion is strongly advised. What follows is a reconstruction of courtroom testimony and corroborated evidence, delivered for education and discussion. The hush in the Manhattan Federal Courthouse felt almost supernatural. That humid spring morning, reporters packed the pews, pens trembling above notepads, while digital feeds ticked outside like Geiger counters. When Ashton Kutcher finally stepped through the side door, you could hear fabric scrape wood. Gone was the goofy grin that once sold millions of tickets. His jaw looked carved from granite, eyes ringed with exhaustion, suit wrinkled as though he had slept in it. He raised his right hand, swore to tell the truth, and the air itself seemed to tighten. Across the aisle, Sean Diddy Combs reclined at the defense table, diamond cuff links winking beneath fluorescent lights. His face registered nothing, but lawyers on both sides shuffled papers with new urgency. They knew what most spectators didn't. Kutcher wasn't merely another celebrity cameo. He was the first insider to bridge Hollywood's red carpets to Wall Street's soft-lit boardrooms, the one man who had flown on the private jets, signed the venture deals, and watched the Velvet Row parties morph into something nobody dared name. Combs faced an indictment so sprawling it felt cinematic. Sex trafficking on 2 coasts, coercion schemes on 3, hush money wires pinging half a dozen tax havens. Prosecutors called it an abuse network masquerading as lifestyle entertainment. Hollywood called it unthinkable, but the instant Ashton adjusted the microphone, unthinkable became unavoidable. His opening statement lasted 7 words. I saw too much for too long. A collective inhale swept the gallery. Over 9 grueling hours, he would describe freak-off chambers hidden behind mirrored walls, biometric data harvested from unsuspecting influencers, shell companies funneling nightclub profits into silent accounts. With every detail, the scaffolding of celebrity myth tilted closer to collapse. Outside the courthouse, a semicircle of satellite trucks craned metallic necks toward the sky, hungry for any scrap that might break first on their network. Passers-by halted, phones aloft, capturing thumbnails destined for viral conspiracy threads. A street vendor cashed in, selling knockoff t-shirts that screamed "Who's greenlit now?" in neon lettering. The city itself seemed to recognize that an invisible lever was being pulled. Traffic snarled, as though resisting the pivot of history. Friends texted friends. Turn on the news. Somewhere on the 37th floor of a Manhattan high-rise, an investment analyst resorted a spreadsheet, shading cells tied to Kutcher's venture portfolio a cautionary orange. The ripple was instantaneous, widening by the minute, and Ashton had not yet said more than his name. Reporters later noted that his voice, though steady, carried a rasp like rusted hinges being forced open. It wasn't nerves, they decided. It was years of swallowed truths, scratching their way up his throat. Each syllable promised to drag something hidden into daylight, and everyone in that room, from stenographer to judge, braced for the brightness. This is the story of the day Ashton Kutcher finally made the world listen. The courtroom monitors flickered to life, projecting the first slide of a 118-page indictment. Count after count streamed upward like a cursed credits reel. Conspiracy, coercion, interstate trafficking, financial fraud, 42 separate charges, 42 chances to confirm or destroy the legend of Sean Combs. The jurors' faces remained politely unreadable, yet everyone felt the gravitational pull of the list. Each line item suggested another hidden corridor, another locked door, humming behind Hollywood's marble facade. Why, you might ask, did Kutcher matter so much? After all, dozens of models, drivers, security contractors, and ex-assistants had already placed Combs near the flames. But prosecutors needed more than proximity. They needed connective tissue. Ashton was that sinew. The Midwestern sitcom star had morphed into a Silicon Valley ambassador, pitching venture funds by day and toasting champagne behind mansion gates at night. His diary, digital and otherwise, tracked flight logs, investment memos, photo ops, and payments that mapped a constellation with Diddy at its blazing center. One email, entered as Exhibit 14C, said it plainly. Green light confirmed for AK. All access. No capture. Translation. Kutcher could roam anywhere on Diddy's property, without fear of being recorded for blackmail. That level of trust didn't materialize from a single-party selfie. It evolved through years of mutual benefit. Ashton brought cachet, investors, and a wholesome mask. Diddy supplied adrenaline, exclusivity, and the kind of whispered rumors that made every NDA feel exciting rather than ominous. What the indictment didn't list, but what every entertainment lawyer in Los Angeles whispered about, were the cultural counts, broken careers, silenced accusers, songs we can no longer dance to without a twinge of guilt. Those charges don't fit neatly into federal code, yet they linger like smoke above the official paperwork. Beyond the headlines sat a secondary drama, the tech world's collision with celebrity scandal. Venture capital doesn't fear scandal so much as unpredictability, and Ashton represented both. If he confirmed prosecutorial theories linking startup capital to exploitative data streams, a dozen unicorn valuations, could lose their horns overnight. If he backpedaled, the defense would trumpet a clean bill of health for the glitzy ecosystem. Either way, the tilt of his testimony threatened to slide billions across the table. To understand how the dominoes began lining up, you have to rewind to 2003, a summer of flip phones and reality TV innocence. Ashton, fresh off That 70s Show, hosted a yacht mixer and sponsored by an energy drink startup he'd quietly backed. Sean Combs, already a legend, always scouting new proteges, stepped aboard. Cameras flashed, collaborations were toasted, and by dawn a seed was planted. Within a year, the tabloids coined a term that stuck, the new Hollywood Rat Pack. But these weren't Sinatra's crooners, nursing whiskey at the sands. They were brand evangelists, venture evangelists, hype evangelists. Diddy for fashion and music, Kutcher for tech, Danny Masterson for insular social circles tied to his faith, Wilmer Valderrama as the charismatic conduit to Disney and the Latinx market. Their synergy looked harmless. Charity poker in Vegas, snowboarding retreats in Aspen, white parties on the Hampton sand where guests marched in linen like angels auditioning for heaven. Beneath the Instagram glow, protocols hardened. Upon arrival, phones surrendered, a laminated waiver masquerading as a wellness form, asked about allergies to flashing lights or claustrophobic settings. Later, guests learned the waiver doubled as a non-disclosure agreement 3,000 words long. For Ashton, the trade felt worth it. A single selfie beside Combs could bump a Series A valuation overnight. A rumor of his presence at a VIP after-party unlocked pitch meetings with investors who didn't care about code, only cachet. In return, Ashton supplied the Rolodex. Hedge fund heirs aching for street cred, founders desperate for influencer shoutouts, data scientists willing to map user behavior from nightclub RFID wristbands. Yet lines blurred quickly. The Rat Pack's gatherings mutated into curated experiences. Picture windowless mansions with clocks removed so dawn arrived whenever bartenders dimmed the lights. Hedge mazes funneling drones away from real entrances. Guests divided by wristband color. Yellow for lounge, blue for backroom, green for anywhere. One night in 2006, Ashton brought a college friend. She lasted 20 minutes. It felt like walking into a carnival rigged by ghosts. She texted him afterward. He apologized, blamed the vibe on jet lag, promised her a normal dinner soon. He never followed up. By 2008, someone leaked the first whisper of a freak-off. The blogs laughed it off as urban legend. The Rat Pack laughed louder, raising glasses under imported strobe lights. Behind those laughs, invitations were being engraved for something darker. The first official freak-off, according to sanitized testimony, took place in autumn 2005 at a villa outside Santa Barbara. Guests arrived at sunset. Chauffeurs wore latex gloves. Phones clicked into velvet-lined lockboxes. Anyone wearing a red wristband was escorted to the viewing veranda. Code for observers, with no right to speak. Ashton expected a masquerade ball. Eccentric, sure, but whimsical. What he encountered instead felt like a live-action art piece, spliced with a behavioral psych experiment. Blindfolded models paraded through labyrinth corridors, while hidden speakers dripped ambient pulses. In corner alcoves, cameras the size of shirt buttons blinked red, recording angles guests could never see. At first, Ashton whispered on the stand, I thought it was immersive theater. By the 30-minute mark, I understood someone was building documentation. Documentation for what? Prosecutors suggested two motives: leverage and currency. The leverage was obvious: embarrassing footage archived for future obedience. The currency proved subtler: biometric data, emotional response analytics, even saliva swabs disguised as molecular gastronomy tasters. All of it, Ashton learned years later, could be monetized in algorithmic markets hungry for authentic human reactions. A 2013 audio clip captured him muttering to a handler, "We shouldn't film this. Seriously, this is too much." The handler replied, "Relax. They already signed." 14 syllables that erased plausible deniability. By 2009, the freak-off evolved into a franchise. Pop-up versions appeared on festival yachts in Cannes, in repurposed bunkers near Berlin, in a decommissioned train station outside Tokyo. Each iteration layered new gimmicks: heat-mapping floors to trace barefoot dancers, nano-drones misting customized pheromones, VR headsets that blurred consent into confetti. For the green light guests, there were no lines at the bar, no cameras pointed at their faces, no questions about nervous newcomers. Kutcher testified that after 3 years, he stopped bringing dates. "I told myself I was protecting them," he said, "but really I was protecting the escape hatch in my mind, the one that let me keep cashing the checks." At one Paris freak-off, he signed a 28-page NDA printed on black paper, so photocopies would fail. He didn't read beyond page 2. Strip away the champagne towers, and what's left is ledger ink. Prosecutors displayed a flowchart stretching 8 feet, nodes glowing like constellations. Nightlife group here, music tech incubator there. A Cayman registered holding firm fanning tendrils into both. In the center, 2 familiar initials, AK, and 1 stylized signature more famous than some nation flags. Ashton never denied the investments. Crowdfunded health trackers, gig economy courier apps, a social trust algorithm he once joked could replace horoscopes. He had spent a decade touting them. What he omitted was how often seed rounds were underwritten by entities later linked to Combs's overseas arms. Millions moved under invoice tags reading event services, creative advisory, or, most cryptic of all, atmospheric capture. Atmospheric of what exactly? The prosecutor asked. Ashton inhaled. They said user sentiment. Translation: emotional metadata from parties fed machine learning models, sold to marketing giants. Guests thought they were sipping uniqueness. Actually, they were generating datasets more valuable than ticket sales. PulsePath, an exclusive club app, promised VIPs frictionless check-in via NFC wristbands. Inside, beacons mapped dwell time at bars, lounges, bathrooms. Less advertised was a back-end dashboard offering sponsors real-time psychographics, who gravitated toward neon art, who lingered near exits, whose stress levels dipped after a second cocktail. PulsePath imploded within 18 months, publicly blamed on customer adoption lag. In sealed court filings, however, it was labeled excessive data privacy exposure. Another venture, GhostGrid, received $6 million days after a Hamptons freak-off. The pitch: pair high-end events with augmented reality scavenger hunts. The reality: crowdsource hyper-accurate indoor mapping for venues later repurposed by private security consultants. Hidden in discovery was a pitch deck for Calmara, offering quiet zones at high-octane events. Slide 13 revealed a proposed upsell: real-time cortisol readouts, sold to luxury advertisers. Ashton admitted the deck's fonts impressed him more than its ethics. Even the charity sphere wasn't immune. A children's coding camp received sponsorship from a foundation linked to Orchid Blue. Camp tablets quietly uploaded anonymized keystroke patterns for educational research. Prosecutors said those datasets later improved a Combs-affiliated social app. The kids got t-shirts. The algorithms got smarter. The first tremor seemed trivial. A tech conference keynote rescinded due to scheduling changes. Then a streaming series cameo evaporated. Marketing emails he never drafted leaked to gossip blogs. Fear breeds compliance. Mila begged him to exit the hamster wheel, so he declined the next 3 Rat Pack invites. Each decline triggered a new micro-punishment. An investment closed without him. A publicist hesitated. A tabloid headline rehashed old rumors. Reality slapped harder in January 2017. At a charity gala, Diddy hugged Ashton and murmured, "You should be careful about what you don't remember." A week later, a USB drive with embarrassing footage landed at Kutcher's office. The real gut punch arrived in February 2018. Leaked emails tied Kutcher to a shadow app, scraping contacts of nightclub guests. Crisis teams mobilized like paramedics of perception. Ghost-written op-eds, staged philanthropic photo ops, and crisis counselors, adept at scrubbing Wikipedia. A midnight text later warned, "If the ship sinks, lifeboats are for buyers only," with an attached screenshot of his children walking to school. He doubled security, but told no police. "I convinced myself it was intimidation theater," he said. "Now I know it was rehearsal for worse." Pandemic lockdowns should have slowed the news cycle, but scandal travels faster than viruses. In April 2020, drone footage showed federal vans outside Combs's mansion. 2 weeks later, agents visited an archive facility, part owned by a Kutcher Media fund, carrying a warrant for surveillance footage. Anonymous accounts dumped decades-old party photos, tagging them #freakoff files. One clip captured Ashton telling security, "Just keep them calm until we start." Out of context, it could mean anything. Online, it meant complicity. Brands reacted with cold math. A sneaker collaboration reevaluated. Venture funds quietly replaced his seat with rotating advisory voices. Traditional media scrambled. A late-night anchor mocked NDAs thicker than Tolstoy, while Twitter trended #No Windows Party alongside a gif of a coffin nailed shut. Suddenly, secrecy was radioactive, and the glow threatened to swallow anyone who had once basked in it. At 9:04 a.m. on day 9, the bailiff called his name. Cameras were barred, but sketch artists captured the slump in Ashton's shoulders as he began. He spoke of invitation tiers, the green light designation, rooms without windows, NDAs thicker than film scripts. He read excerpts from a 2010 document warning that disclosure penalties would exceed the net present value of computed lifetime earnings. The jury flinched when prosecutors played the 2013 audio. "I don't think we should film this." Defense counsel asked if he had enjoyed these events. Ashton didn't blink. "Enjoyment doesn't equal consent to abuse," he said. He admitted sending letters to victims, not for forgiveness, but acknowledgement. Then came the bombshell diagram. The cleanup crew, 3 tiers labeled Hush, Heal, and Haunt. His signature appeared on 2 Tier 2 disbursements. I thought I was helping friends, he whispered. Actually, I was purchasing their silence on behalf of someone else. He ended. I wanted to stop being afraid, so I picked the one room he doesn't control, this one. Rulings come slow, but reputations bleed fast. 48 hours after his testimony, studio chiefs reassessed partnerships. A streaming platform yanked 2 reality shows bankrolled by Combs. Yet the larger tremor was invisible. Investors ordered forensic sweeps of past rounds, searching for shell company contamination. Startups rushed to issue statements distancing themselves from legacy capital structures. Victims' advocates, long sidelined, now demanded oversight of consent-adjacent tech in nightlife venues. Congressional aides floated the Guest Privacy Act to regulate biometric collection. The galleries emptied slowly that afternoon, murmurs ricocheting through marble corridors. Reporters fumbled for adjectives. Lawyers whispered damage estimates. And somewhere beyond the courthouse, Glass, a tourist, asked what all the fuss was about. History, someone muttered. History with better lighting. The gavel hasn't fallen, the appeals haven't been filed, and the Hollywood machine hasn't fully digested its own entrails. Yet something irreversible cracked when Ashton Kutcher raised his hand and chose daylight over damage control. The freak-offs, the biometric harvesting, the shell games. Each revelation snagged a thread in the tapestry of fame, and the fabric keeps unspooling across boardrooms and timelines. Maybe you watch Kutcher's rom-coms on date nights or dance to Combs' tracks at weddings. Maybe you never heard of PulsePath or Ghost Grid or atmospheric capture. It doesn't matter. What matters is the ecosystem that grew fat on our collective willingness to equate visibility with virtue. 1,000 Instagram stories of champagne foam do not equal proof of consent behind closed doors. Venture valuations built on celebrity aura can mask darker ledgers. And every time we scroll past rumors because the soundbite is catchy, we fertilize the soil where secrets sprout. You might argue this is merely another scandal in a city built on reinvention. Perhaps. Hollywood has weathered morality plays before. Studio heads escorted to Senate hearings. Rock stars handcuffed on live TV. Moguls unmasked after years of backstage shadows. Yet something here feels different. Less like a single rotten orchard, and more like fungus in the irrigation pipes. Because data is the new oxygen, and oxygen touches everything. Every wristband beep at a velvet gate, every facial skin filter in a pop-up booth, every NDA clause about behavioral biometrics feeds a hunger that doesn't sleep. And once that hunger has your heartbeat on file, what else can it map? Your cravings, your weaknesses, your vote. That is the ghost haunting the margins of this trial. It isn't just whether Diddy goes free or Ashton salvages his image. It is whether the culture that cheered their ascent can bear to audit the scaffolding. So the next time an influencer live streams from a candlelit mansion, ask who owns the servers. The next time a venture deck flaunts hyper-personalized nightlife, ask what happens to the night when you leave. Above all, learn to recognize the uneasy chill that slips across any room where phones are not allowed. Secrecy may sell thrill, but transparency keeps people safe. If you feel that shiver, trust it. That instinct is your last unmonetized asset. Guard it well. So where does that leave us? Viewers, voters, consumers of culture? It leaves us staring at the uncomfortable math of complicity. We fund the algorithms with our clicks. We inflate egos with our likes. We treat red carpet access as a moral reference check. Maybe we can't bulldoze every mirrored corridor, but we can refuse to cheer when the invite brags about secrecy. We can ask why the waiver is 30 pages long. We can wonder whom the joke hurts before we laugh. As the courtroom lights dim and deliberations begin, remember this: empires don't crumble because one pillar cracks. They crumble because the crowd finally sees the cracks were always there. Whether Ashton Kutcher's testimony redeems him or merely rebrands him is a verdict history will render in footnotes. But the mirror he held up to fame is ours to face now. Take a breath, scroll back through your own feeds, and ask, when the next charismatic headline struts by, will you double-tap the image, or will you look for the door that might be closing just out of frame? The choice, this time, is in the open, and the green light list has been burned.